Hey there, sailor.
What do you want?
Oh, I was just wondering if...
What?
Oh, just thinking about your weapons and your armor.
Oh my god, what do you want from me? I'm trying to sleep.
Well, I was just wondering if maybe, just maybe, you were planning on updating any of them anytime soon?
Well, now that you mention it, I am a big fan of orange outlines.
Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, with the roadmap for Iceborne DLC laid out in front of us, it's hard to not feel the electricity in the air, the excitement and the rush for all the big things in the future, like Arch Tempered monsters. Yeah, Arch Tempered monsters are making a noteworthy return in the near future, and in the past, as a whole, the Arch Tempered system has been a little bit questionable, let's say. So today I'm going to talk about some of the main changes that I could expect coming to a certain system from a certain Arch Tempered monster, and then about my hopes and expectations for how Capcom will handle Arch Tempered monsters in general for Iceborne as a whole.
You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
Well, last time around, we saw a number of monsters with minimal changes, just bumps and damage numbers for the most part, though there were some notable exceptions, one of which was Kulve Taroth, who technically gained a whole new phase and acted differently throughout the entire fight, and had some new moves, but what I really want to focus on here is that she gained an entire new set of weapons to fit her Arch-Tempered style, essentially doubling down on her non-combat major mechanic, as it was the Arch-Tempered version of a big important siege quest. So what exactly do I expect from Arch-Tempered version of Iceborne's big important siege quest, equipment-wise? Well, sure, it's likely that we'll get a new round of weapons with better stats from Safi'jiiva. How much further could they actually take it, though? Because the Awakening system is probably one of the most interesting and unique mechanics in the game, and advancing it in any way, shape, or form could totally change the way an endgame Iceborne build works. Let's start with an easy answer then. What if Arch-Tempered Safi weapons have 6 Awakening slots instead of 5? Literally as simple as now they can just get a chunk more attack or a chunk more whatever if you want it to be that, but that's sort of boring if I'm honest. It doesn't leave a whole lot of avenues for growth or change. So what if on top of having 6 Awakening slots per weapon, we now say that you can have 2 set bonus abilities on your weapon instead of just 1, essentially allowing you to have a 4 set bonus and a 3 set bonus active simultaneously in your armor set.
You're insane! Sure I am, what's your point?
Okay, maybe that's a little crazy. In theory, an Arch-Tempered Safi'jiiva would be one of the later Arch-Tempered, right? And its gear would therefore be perfectly fine to just be the most unbelievably powerful thing in the game with no worry of having to top it afterwards, because it'll be so late in the game cycle. So just for the sake of interesting conversation, let's say instead of expanding Awakening slots or allowing multiple set bonus abilities, what if you just make the set bonus ability count for the entire set bonus? Teostra technique literally just granting you Master's Touch and things of that nature. You could literally have a set with true critical element and true critical status to have a ton of fun with some of the fancier dual blades. And this one I think just technically results in the least ridiculously overpowered sets, as it still only actually adds 1 set bonus to your build, but I think it would result in far more interesting niche utility and fun silly builds, which I am all for. Imagine mixing Divine Blessing Secret with Free Meal Secret, but then also being able to hit Valhazak's Super Recovery, and then just seeing what on earth you could do with that. But then what if, instead of having to do with the weapons, it actually has to do with the armor? What if defeating Arch-Tempered Safi'jiiva results in Awakening abilities for your armor sets? Nothing quite as ridiculous as I've theorized in the past, but even something like each armor set can have 1 Awakening ability, one of the statistical ones, so attack, affinity, defense, element, or status, and you can literally augment your armor pieces to add just a tiny amount of bonus to you per piece. Or, my personal favorite, knowing again that this would be one of the final DLC updates, and again power creep isn't really a worry at this point, is what if there was a super minuscule but technically infinite Awakening for your armor? Something like your damage increases by 0.001% for every X amount of Dracolite you pour into it. So if you spend 100 hours beating Safi's face in, you get like a 1 or 2% damage increase. And sure, that is small, but it's just one of those things that could allow you to feel like you were upgrading yourself constantly, always getting better, though I could totally see this backfiring just as easily. Back on track then, I think because of the mechanics of something as unique as the Awakening ability system, there is a lot of room for Arch-Tempered Safi'jiiva to have a greater effect on the game as a whole than just his fight itself, and I think they will dig into that, and messing with this system has a lot of potential in my eyes. Though that said, the Arch Tempered system in general does have a lot of potential, assuming it is handled differently in Iceborne than it has been in the past, or at least better than the worst examples of it in the past, because some of them have actually been quite nice.
You serious?
Arch Tempered Safi'jiiva is always the one that I'll go back to most because I got the most enjoyment out of it. So what was different from regular Zeno? Well, they got rid of the initial starting area, putting him right into the more enjoyable, larger, open area without droppable boulders. They gave him a couple of new moves, they increased his damage, and they added ground fire patches to a ton of his abilities, while also messing with the time period that said ground patches stay around, which actually caused the fight to get a the floor is lava type of feel out of it eventually, because there was just so little space to maneuver.
I care about my personal space. Whoa, whoa.
And as a result, it totally changed the feel of the entire fight. And that, in my opinion, is the potential of the Arch Tempered system. Even if it hasn't necessarily reached this potential in the past, I think Capcom has really listened to and heard a lot of the community feedback on the matter, that the earlier Arch Tempered monsters were just too simple. They were boring and they didn't feel special or different. As we got further through the system though, the monsters generally got a lot better. So I think they were definitely listening to feedback back then, and they've now had over a year to take in feedback on some of the older Arch Tempered monsters. So I really do have high hopes for the Arch Tempereds of the future. I really think that they will go the route that changes the fights and make them feel fresh, which brings up a new and important question. What about Tier 1 and Tier 2 monsters? Well, this point has changed a lot since Base World in my opinion. Back in the day, the entire endgame was investigations, with the most efficient ones being Tier 3 investigations, meaning the Elder Dragons. So when Capcom released an Arch Tempered version of each Elder Dragon with minimal changes, it was like, oh boy, I get to fight the exact same thing I fought 1,000 times in a row one more time, but now it hurts more and glows a little.
Ooh, shiny.
So the idea of Arch Tempering Tier 1 and 2 monsters back then was super tantalizing. But now in Iceborne we have the Guiding Lands, which, while not quite solving the issue per se, makes it a lot less blatant. We see these lower tier monsters a lot more often, and it's a lot less in need of fixing, I suppose. I would be happy to see them, but only if they're actually different, if we don't just get higher damage clones. If we do, then just don't touch the Tier 1 and tier monsters. But if you make them genuinely cool and different, then I'm all for it. That said, an important thing to note is that Tier 3 Tempered monsters is actually a much more inclusive banner this time around, as it isn't just Elder Dragons, meaning if what becomes Arch Tempered follows the Tempered levels rather than just literally being Elder Dragons, we could totally get something like an Arch Tempered Seething Basilgeuse, or an Arch Tempered Savage Deviljho, an Arch Tempered Rajang, or Arch Tempered Metal Raz, and those could be super cool. Imagine if they changed Seething Basil so his bombs had little ground puddles, or they mess with the explosion radius or something like that. Those are the kinds of changes that I really want to see from Arch Tempered monsters. Make them ridiculously hard with actual mechanical changes, because these quests are supposed to be a challenge. They're supposed to be different and fresh. I want to see variation from the base monster. I want to see it being genuinely harder for mechanical reasons, not just damage. Obviously not something as significant as a subspecies or variant, but just some sort of mechanical change that makes the fight as a whole feel special. And while most of the old Arch Tempered monsters failed at that, a couple of them actually did quite nicely. And if Capcom can capture what made those ones work and apply it to the rest of them in Iceborne, I can only imagine myself saying positive things about the Arch Tempered system as a whole in the future. Alright everyone, I've been Cotton Dinosaur, and this has been my thoughts and expectations on the future of the Arch Tempered systems in Iceborne. Do you like any of my ideas? What do you expect Capcom to give us? Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. This is the brand new outro to tell you all the things that you do that we love, so let's start with something simple and say, oh, we love your eyes. When they're watching us play video games, we make a bunch of jokes that are kinda lame, or when they gaze upon our failures as we try to kill the monsters or important news about the Kingdom Animalia. Rage, Content, and Hollow are all here, talking about the things you want to hear, so if you want to be the first to hear, like and subscribe and the bell and we'll cheer. Some of you are patrons, even though we are all the noobs and you're the pros. There's nothing we can do to thank you. No, really, there's nothing we could possibly do. Goodbye.